Welcome to Oxford Group. My name is Kim Møller. I'm the founder and I'm the group CEO. This story is about how it all began. What's really the DNA of the company? Why do we do as we do? In 1995, I was at a crossroad in my career. I had been 13 years at the Copenhagen Business School. I've been a researcher, assistant and associate professor. I had co-created what today is the Department for Business, Society and Communication. I have served my role at faculty committees and study boards. And I really loved the research, I loved the teaching, but I wasn't too fond of business school politics and administration, and I missed the kind of the team feeling. Then I was, for 2 years, research director at something called Strategic Forum, which is a private think tank. And I really loved the team spirit there. I loved how we made an impact, but I really missed kind of the depth of what we do. So in 1995, I was like, I can continue at the business school, I could go back, I can continue with the consulting, but I could also create a workplace and a company of my own, building on what I have learned works and at least what works for me. So my dream was, in terms of a workplace, to be part of a team that cared for each other, that together made an impact on society, on business, on people, and that worked smoothly together, so we didn't really need much administration or much management. In terms of a company, my dream was to combine 3 things. The research I knew from the business school, which was meaning that you're always clear on what is the context, you are transparent in what's your choices of methodology, and when you conclude, you don't conclude more, you don't conclude less, you don't conclude different from what evidence actually tells you. But I also learned from Strategic Forum, which was part of a media house, the importance of communication. So I wanted to combine good research with good communication, meaning language should be easy accessible, it should be combined with pictures and figures and graphs, so we could kind of be on level of what I see as the best business magazines. But also learned a lot from management consultants. And I would like strategy to be the 3rd component of what we did. Meaning, when a management consultant, at the best, when they start an assignment, they are clear from the beginning who's going to do what at the end. So they see that there are clear recommendations and clear actionable plans for who do what and when. Now, my concern starting my own company was to become a very local consultancy, only doing work in Denmark. Because in my previous career I had traveled a lot, worked abroad in different settings, and that's really the salt in my cooking. I would be very sorry to miss that out. So a good old friend of mine, also my old bass player in Møller's swing band from the 70s, Per Jenster, he was a professor at IMD in Switzerland, and he connected me to this guy, David Young, in the UK. David, who had started a company after a career with Henry Kissinger as Minister of Foreign Affairs in the US government. And he was producing what was called the Daily Brief. His company was called Oxford Analytica. So I went to see him in Oxford, and after a few beers and a few days at Alfred Street, number 5 in Oxford, and the Bear Inn across the street, we agreed that we could start up as the Nordic representation of Oxford Analytica. So we started 25th of November 1995, on my birthday, actually, in the backyard of Valkendorfsgade in the medieval part of Copenhagen. And actually, it was great fun to start up. We had a great spirit, and we in the beginning was actually only me. But soon we actually became more people, and by 1997 we were around 10 full-time academics. Now the problem we encountered there was we could only represent an Oxford Analytica in the Nordic countries, and we wanted to do work for the European Commission. So we had a challenge with our name. Also, to be honest, we never sold any subscriptions of Oxford Analytica Daily Brief. So it really didn't make that much sense in reality. So we wanted to change the name of the company so we could use it everywhere. We had become known as the guys from Oxford because nobody could ever remember Oxford Analytica. So we knew that to keep our brand value, we should be called something with Oxford, and it then became Oxford Research. Our first assignments were of course built on my references, on my background, first since I was the only person in the company. And part of my background was working with an American professor, Michael Porter from Harvard Business School. And I worked with him on his book, Competitive Advantage of Nations, which came in 1990, and introduced what was called the cluster concept and the model which was called the dynamic diamond. So actually we did a number of assignments based on this cluster approach on what's today called the Danish Business Agency. So that was our first clients. But of course we grew both in terms of thematics, but also later geographically. In terms of thematics, I think it's fair to say there were two people that played a special role here. The first one is an American, Robert Levering, who is the founder of Great Place to Work. And I heard about Great Place to Work in 2001, and I was actually really thrilled by understanding that my intention was to build a great place to work, and here was a company specialized in helping others become great places to work. So I was connected through a friend, Michael Lindholm, who was editor-in-chief of Børsens Nyhedsmagasin, and I went on a research trip to San Francisco, sat down with Robert Levering, and in the end we agreed to start up Great Place to Work Denmark. And that was actually the beginning of a quite intense roller coaster. Before we actually concluded the first year in Denmark, we were approached by the European Commission, who had heard about this concept and thought, "Ooh, it's great. It's both about working conditions, but it's also about competitiveness, because great workplaces are also very competitive workplaces." So we had an assignment, a big one. We had 1.2 million euros. It was a lot of money in those days, to start up Great Place to Work in all 15 EU countries at the time. So it was extremely intense, finding research partners, finding media partners, translating the concept into all European languages, and in the end host national Great Place to Work awards and even the first European list, which was published in Brussels in 2003. Later we also created a Great Place to Work Europe, and we singled out Great Place to Work Denmark from Oxford Research, where it all started. Another person that has meant a lot for this company, how we have grown, is Brian Bacon, who is an Australian management consultant. I was fascinated by his clarity of mind and his view on what is the role of business in society. So he said, big business especially is a huge part of the problems we face today, environmentally and socially, but they are also a huge part of the solution. So if we can help business transform for good, we actually help transforming the society for good. He also had some very good views on leadership. So he was saying Leadership is about context and choices. Context, first you have to focus out, you have to see the big picture, and then you focus in and see the narrow picture. And then you make your choices, and basically choices come from within. It's based on your intuition, on your learning, on your values. And leadership, he says, is about relations, and the conversation is the relation. So leadership is very much about relations. So in terms of structure, of coverage, we have changed over time and we will continue to change. But in terms of our core DNA, we haven't changed and we will not change. We still believe that we make the biggest impact when we manage to combine research, communication, and strategy. There's a lot of good research out there that is not really well communicated and therefore don't have much impact. There's a lot of good communication, but not with an actionable message, so nothing really happens. There's a lot of good strategic management work out there, but seldom it's based on evidence, so no action is taken either. So we still believe when we combine strategy, communication, and research, we make the best to help our clients to make the right decisions. To boil it down, we have 3 core values. We believe that we have to be responsible for ourselves, for our colleagues, for our clients, for the society that we are part of. We believe integrity. I mean, we conclude what you can conclude on evidence, no more, no less, no different. And we believe in creativity. We believe that there's always more than one solution to a problem. There's always more than one thing you can do, and we have to come up with this. So in essence, you can say we are very agile in our structure and in how we work, in what we do, but we are very conservative in why we do it. We do it for providing knowledge for a better society, helping workplaces to become great, and helping business leaders to transform business for good.